Good afternoon. It's 22 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome on board. If you've just joined us, we are the People's Channel. Now, before the break, I was discussing the junior doctor strike. Let's have a look at what you've been saying. Helen says if any patients die during the doctor strike, they must bear responsibility and be tried for corporate manslaughter. Lois says you are absolutely correct. The NHS since Tony Blair has been an unmitigated disaster. Patricia says it is time to abandon the notion that the NHS is too sacred to reform. I agree with you. I think it needs to be completely reformed. I get rid of it and start again, call it something else. Christine says, Nana, perhaps you should work a 40-hour week with no break and half the staff off sick and then criticise. I do, actually, and there's... you know what? We're close to that here. No, listen, seriously, I don't think that the NHS workers don't work hard. I believe they do. But the whole structuring, the way it's done, it just needs to be changed. It can't carry on like that, really. Seriously. And actually striking is probably going to make things a whole lot worse. But right now it's time for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should diversity and inclusion be a priority at the King's coronation? Now, King Charles is reportedly at loggerheads with the Church of England over the role other faiths will play in his coronation next month. The King has made no secret of his desire to have a more diverse ceremony than his mother did in 1953. But church leaders are reportedly resisting a more active role for other faiths, not only because it's an Anglican ceremony, but also because old canon laws bar Muslim, Hindu, Jewish and other faith leaders from reading prayers during the ceremony. So what do you think for the Great British Debate this hour? I'm asking, should diversity and inclusion be a priority at the King's coronation? So to debate this, I'm joined by Ben Habib, member of Reform UK and former MEP, former Labour MP Dennis McShane, and director of CAR26 Lois Perry, and royal commentator Michael Cole. Michael, I want to start with you. Michael, what do you think about this multi-faith approach?
The important thing to say from the start, Nana, is none of the religious leaders in this country is actually asking for an active role in the coronation. And of course, they're all going to be present in the Abbey. And more than that, the King has invited the Chief Rabbi, Ephraim Mervis, to actually stay overnight at Clarence House because the coronation takes place on the Jewish Sabbath and he would be forbidden to travel in a car. He can walk with his wife to the Abbey. So all of those religious leaders will be there. And let's look at this from its historical point of view. A constitutional monarchy, which we're lucky enough to live in, is an invaluable defense against extremism and dictatorship. And the coronation is the supreme and the most important moment in it. It's all about loyalty. The King is invited to express his loyalty and swear an oath of loyalty to God, to the people, and to the Church. And the Church in this case is the Anglican Church, the Protestant faith. And the Protestant faith, you can argue it one way or the other, but for 550 years has been quite a good thing as far as this country has been concerned. And it's a 1,000-year-old ceremony. And if it is interfered with in any material way, which I don't think it will be, it would be to some extent diluted. And that would be an extraordinarily bad idea.
But what would you say to somebody who says, but what he's trying to do, because he said he'll be a sort of a multi-faith king type thing. I mean, that's what he's kind of pitched his stall at.
Yeah, well, there's a possibility of having another ceremony with religious leaders and going through a very good process which would satisfy them. But, you know, the people who've come to this country have come here presumably for one reason, and that's because they think there's something quite good about it. One of the good things about it is the coronation, which is the embodiment of what we believe in this country. It's a frightfully important moment. It's not just marching bands and tea parties and a concert at Windsor Castle. It is central to what this country is. And that supreme moment should not be in any way materially affected for what? I don't think even these religious leaders are asking for that. So to some extent, this is a confected story.
Well, let me bring in Lois Perry. Lois, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think, you know, King Charles has been in trouble before for saying, I want to be defender of the faiths. And he actually used one of his actual first speech to say, I am going to defend the Christian faith. I'm going to be defender of the faith when he became king. You know, if this is overturned and if the ceremony is in any way ruined, you know, one of my favourite historical figures, Anne Boleyn, would have lost her head for nothing, because there wouldn't be a Church of England without her, and the king would not be head of the Church of England and defender of the faith without her either. But I think there's a broader point. How can you have a hereditary and monarchy that is in itself unfair? It's not woke, but I still support it, and millions do, that's trying to be inclusive and woke. Of course, all of the religious leaders should be represented, but there should be no active part in the service whatsoever. This is the Church of England. He is the head of the Church of England. And just on another point as well, you know, net zero is my thing. There shouldn't be any semi-quasi-religious stuff about net zero and climate either. We've had enough of that. We do not want a woke king.
He might. Well, I'm afraid we've got one. It says too late for that. Let's bring in Dennis McShay. Dennis.
So I just got out a £2 coin, which has fid def, which short of the Latin term defender of the faith, Fidelis Defendoris, given to Henry VIII by a pope in 1532, because he wrote a magnificent pamphlet saying, down with Protestantism, down with Anglicanism, only the Catholic Church is the true church. Now, I was very struck that the king, when he was Prince Charles, Prince of Wales, said he'd like to be defender of faiths in the plural, respecting all religions. I thought that was quite a good statement of his. And I'm rather sad that all the Catholics of Britain, who didn't come here, Michael, you know, like yesterday, they've been here for longer maybe than you have, I don't know. All the Catholics of Britain, the many Jews, now the many...
You look older than Michael.
Well...
You look older than Michael, man.
Many Catholics, all of them, excluded from it. The Archbishop of Canterbury -1234, Robert Runcie, raised the issue that according to Anglican law, they cannot crown a king who marries a divorced woman.
So hang on, no, hold on. Okay, right. I don't think we're going to get any sense out of you. Ben Habib. I don't know what he's talking about.
Well, bring them all in.
Terrific trot we're about to go on through the history books. But, I mean, I think we're all pretty much in agreement. You know, King Charles is constitutional head of the state, and he's also head of the church. And it's, you know, the Anglican Church. And by all means, be inclusive and have people at the ceremony that, you know, reaches out to broader community. But it mustn't be hijacked in any way. This is a very solemn ceremony being conducted through, you know, the Church of England, and that's how it should be.
You think? So let me see. So pretty much all of you agree that King Charles shouldn't be bringing in these other faiths in an active manner on the...
Yeah. No, I disagree.
Oh, you disagree?
Okay.
Well, we never got to it, did we? He disagrees. This is what...
Well, come on.
You never got to it.
I can't just be...
Nana, that's so sacred that actually it has to be done privately, where he is anointed, and it's seen as such a sacred part of the ceremony that it's actually done in private. It's just between him and God, and it's an Anglican ceremony, and we are an Anglican country.
Well
said, Lois.
I don't really, if they want to take him away and drop a bit of oil on his head, we're the last monarchy in Britain, the only one in the world that has this coronation. We haven't had one for, 70 years. We'll do it very well. We love pageants, we love colour and trooping and soldiers and all the rest of it. But I just do think, I would like to see the Catholics of Britain there's some acknowledgement, the Jews of Britain, the Muslims of Britain, Hindus, Buddhists from Suella Braverman, whoever. We're a multi-faith community, and that's one of our strengths now.
You keep bringing in Suella Braverman. Come on. Michael Cole. Michael.
Yes, well, Dennis has dropped his drop of oil on it and tried to trivialise it. But the Archbishop of Westminster, the leader of the Catholic Church in England, he isn't campaigning to take part. He knows his place, he knows his history, and he knows what's to be gained by continuity. And that's what it's all about. And the anointing is extremely important, because after the king will be anointed, he will be invested with the symbols of power and authority, not for his own glory, but for the glory of God and in the service of the people.
Lois.
Sorry, Lois.
Yeah, I just absolutely agree. He's doing this ceremony is not for tourists. It's for us, and he is anointed by God. And yeah, it's sacred. It needs to stay the same. All the faiths should be there, but only the Church of England should be running the ceremony. It is an Anglican ceremony. Yeah, he shouldn't ruin it. We mustn't have the woke king and the woke coronation.
10 seconds to Dennis McShane.
Very simply, Michael and Lois know far more about this in the faith and the role of the Anglican Church than I do as a Catholic. Does the king go to church every Sunday? I know we saw him today.
Michael, does he go every Sunday?
He does.
The important thing, Dennis, is this, this is a sacred, almost a marriage between the monarch and the people of this country and his overseas realms. There's even a ring that is put on his finger. The vows are recited aloud so that everybody can hear them, and then he's acclaimed. And that would never happen in the Romanovs or the Hohenzollerns or the Habsburgs of Austria. It's not democratic, but it has elements of democracy in it. He has to be acclaimed, and we welcome him as our king. And when we say, long live the king, we should mean it.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Michael Cole. Lovely to talk to you. Michael Cole, he's, of course, a royal commentator. Lois Perry from CAR26, Dennis McShane, former Labour MP, and also Ben Habib, former MEP and, of course, member of Reform. So what do you think? What are your thoughts? You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. You can also catch us live and stream us on YouTube. Coming up, we'll continue with the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should diversity and inclusion be a priority at the King's coronation? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and author Christine Hamilton, also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.